What's up, Mets fans? It's your boy CP, and welcome back to the latest edition of the True Mets Talk podcast. The New York Mets are coming off of an electric 4-3 walk-off victory over NL East division rival Atlanta Braves on Sunday Night Baseball, thanks to some late-game heroics by Mr. Brandon Nimmo. And Brandon Nimmo really is going to be the main talking point of this podcast episode. We're going to be talking about the resurgence of Brandon Nimmo, throw up some of the stats surrounding Mr. Nimmo since April 25th, and talk about the grand old question that we've talked about on here time and time again, especially in the offseason before this season began. Would you move Brandon Nimmo out of the leadoff spot? Before we get into that, make sure you hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the comment section down below. Let's get into it.
You are now watching the True Mets Talk podcast, talking New York Mets baseball 24/7, 365 with your host, CP.
With the shout to right field, stumbling start for Stewart. Throws to deep left field by Alvarez. He's homered in 4 straight games for the second time. He's homered in 4.
All right, the Atlanta Braves and New York Mets just wrapped up a weekend series, and the Braves took 2 of 3 from the Mets at Citi Field. This was a series that the Mets offense simply just didn't show up and didn't produce enough behind some pretty decent starting pitching performances. I will say Jose Quintana looked a little shaky. 5 innings pitched, 4 earned runs. It was good to see Adrian Hauser out of the pen, 2 scoreless innings as well. But like I said, in the first 2 games, the offense for the Mets simply just didn't show up. And that was especially the case on that Saturday game with Christian Scott making his Citi Field debut, his the second start of his career. He turned in 6 innings pitched, only 3 earned runs, 8 strikeouts. He had the put away pitches going, but again, just absolutely zero offensive production behind him, which was the same story of his brilliant outing in Tampa Bay. The New York Mets actually almost got no hit, but thanks to a late game solo home run by JD Martinez, I believe with 2 outs in the 9th inning, that did not happen. That would have only added insult to injury. So then you go into game 3. It was a back and forth game. Obviously, Adam Ottavino, I believe, gave up the go-ahead run thanks to a Marcell Ozuna RBI single up the middle. And then you get to the 9th inning. Brandon Nimmo had already been brought in as a defensive replacement for DJ Stewart in left field. First half inning out in the field, makes a nice leaping grab up against the wall in left field. Then comes around in the bottom of the 9th inning and delivers a walk-off 2-run home run, Brandon Nimmo style, with that awesome pink bat on Mother's Day. Hopefully you all enjoyed Mother's Day. Shout out to all the mothers out there in Mets land and non-Mets land. Just in general, shout out to you all. You all deserved it, and I hope you all had a special day. But this podcast episode is really going to be surrounded by Mr. Brandon Nimmo here. Obviously, a little bit of a scary and worrisome moment for New York Mets fans, as Brandon Nimmo did get pulled from the game on Saturday. Wasn't really sure and still am not quite sure what the diagnosis was. All I know is that he was good enough and felt good enough that the Mets were able to put him back into the ball game on Sunday there late, and he was able to basically deliver the New York Mets a win to improve their record to 19-20. Only 1 game out of a wild card spot, 8 games out of the NL East. We'll see the standings here in just a bit. But Brandon Nimmo, who had gotten off to a rocky start, has been a subject of the core performances or lack thereof here in the first couple weeks of the season. We've been talking about it here in the True Mets Talk podcast, the Amazing Mets pregame shows, the Mets roundtable shows, and Brandon Nimmo really, whether he's been watching our streams and our podcasts or not, has really took it personally and started to deliver, especially here right around that April 25th mark. And you see the statistics for Brandon Nimmo since April 25th. Absolutely tremendous, stepping it up in a major way and really trying to kickstart this lifeless Mets offense 314, hitting 314 in the batting average category since April 25th, slugging over 600, which is phenomenal. OPS over 1,000 in that time frame, which is phenomenal. 16 hits in general. 8 of those are doubles and home runs combined, 4 and 4. 8 of those 16 hits, and you have 12 RBIs in that category. Overall, Brandon Nimmo is leading the New York Mets with total team RBIs out of that leadoff spot, I believe, with 27, which is just absolutely crazy to think about, which is only really the partial reason for me to bring this back up again in terms of a potential lineup shakeup of moving Brandon Nimmo out of that leadoff spot, maybe to more of a role within the middle of the order. There was some discussions about Francisco Lindor and Brandon Nimmo swapping. I know I had proposed that in the offseason with Francisco Lindor's prior success in Cleveland at the leadoff spot. Brandon Nimmo really has caught a power surge with the doubles and extra base hits as well as the home runs in seasons prior, while maintaining a great above league average OBP, and this year is no exception. Like I said, leading the team in RBIs, 6 home runs to his name, and also maintaining a 379 on base percentage, which is absolutely phenomenal. He is a bat that impacts the game in more ways than not. Even if he isn't making solid contact, even if he isn't racking up base hits or extra base hits, he is drawing walks, he is drawing counts, which is presumably the pushback that a lot of people have in terms of moving him out of that leadoff spot. But for me, when you look at this lineup that's struggling, especially with runners in scoring position, especially in the middle of your lineup with your 3 and 4 hitters, Francisco Lindor and Pete Alonso, it really would make sense for me and for the Mets front office and Carlos Mendoza to try to switch things around to produce a little bit more life in the middle of this order, especially when you have some table setters get on, maybe perhaps early in the game. You would hope to sort of maybe get out to early ball game leads. But let's just take a look at it. Did some background research. You don't see it on the screen here, but the Mets are not only bottom 15 in terms of stranding runners in scoring position, but they are also bottom 15 with just batting average, right? In terms of team batting average at 236 with runners in scoring position. Now, those two things might seem like they are the same thing, but you do have odd situations and unique situations like moving runners over, a runner in scoring position at second base, moving him over to third base with either a sac fly or just a ground ball to the pull side or the opposite side, depending if it's a righty or a lefty, or maybe a sac fly that doesn't count with the batting average or against the batting average, but also counts in the RBI category. But nonetheless, the Mets really are a bottom 15 team, really a bottom 10 team in the league with runners in scoring position, no matter how you cut it up. Now, I did some digging and I chose to pull the overall efficiency landscape and the success rate with batting average in terms of batting average with runners in scoring position for the New York Mets. League leaders, the New York Mets only possess 2 in the top 100 in terms of the batting average category with runners in scoring position around the MLB. Brandon Nimmo leads the team in that category around the league. He's ranked 30th, hitting 375 with runners in scoring position. And the Mets only have one other player ranked within the top 100 when it comes to batting average with runners in scoring position. And no, it's not Francisco Lindor. No, it's not Jeff McNeil. No, it's not Starling Marte. And it's not even Pete Alonso. It is DJ Stewart, ranked 97th, hitting 286 with runners in scoring position. So you go from 375 and Nimmo being ranked 30th in all the MLB down to 97th with DJ Stewart hitting 286, ranked 97th. This is the problem with the New York Mets in a nutshell. And this doesn't just get boiled down to 2024 and the early goings of 2024. This has been a routine, consistent problem going back to 2021. Maybe not so much in 2022, although if I really did my digging, I probably would think that the Mets weren't top 10 with runners in scoring position. But I have to fact check myself on that. But definitely in 2023, when you look at a lost year and a debacle of a season last season. Your middle of the order guys If anyone just wants to take a guess at where they are ranked and what they are batting, Francisco Lindor and Pete Alonso before I tell you all on this podcast. Pete Alonso, who actually leads the team in slugging percentage, a statistic that really I have just looked at lacking for the New York Mets in this lineup, being ranked around 18th or 19th. Doubles, triples, home runs, it's lacking. Extra base hits are lacking. And Brandon Nimmo follows Pete closely in the slugging percentage category. And you see right here the excellent slugging percentage for Brandon Nimmo since April 25th. Pete Alonso is ranked 165th in the MLB, hitting around 230 with runners in scoring position. 165th from your cleanup hitter. Now let's look at the third hitter. He is ranked 200th, Francisco Lindor is, only hitting 211 with runners in scoring position. This is the problem that the New York Mets offense and lineup is staring at in the face. It's a problem, folks. And really, I think of Brandon Nimmo and a potential change out of the leadoff spot as only a one-step solution. It's a one-step solution in a process that probably takes 5 steps. But you look at Brandon Nimmo and you look at the sort of prime of his career that he's in, the trajectory that he's going down, potentially moving out of the prime of his career in the next couple of seasons, and you look at the young talent and the personnel coming up, your Luis Angel Acuñas, your Drew Gilberts, your Jet Williams, and their makeup of potentially being leadoff candidates for this team for future years to come. What do the Mets have to lose? What does Carlos Mendoza have to lose? What does this team have to lose? And what does this front office and David Stearns have to lose by potentially experimenting with Brandon Nimmo in the middle of the order and taking him out of the leadoff spot? Because guess what? Brandon Nimmo is not, his OBP is not going to dip. Brandon Nimmo has shown extreme plate discipline and the ability to lay off pitches out of the zone throughout the majority of his career. And that would not change. This is obviously just hearsay and this is just me guessing and predicting. That approach doesn't change just because you move him down 2 spots in the order, maybe with some different situations mixed in between. I don't foresee Brandon Nimmo, whose on-base percentage, while the power has been going up, has not plummeted. I don't foresee that happening just because you move him down into a larger role in the offense at the third spot. And this is not to try to shade a Pete Alonso or Francisco Lindor. Francisco Lindor, my thing and my argument here is playing into these players' strengths. It's worked for Francisco Lindor in the past. Who's to say it cannot work for him again in the future? And with this season being an experimental season to begin with, because let's just call a spade, the Mets are a middle of the pack team. They are 19-20. They are 19-20, and the middle of the order hasn't produced. So why not shake things up? What do you have to lose? Now, a lot of people, and I guess I will play devil's advocate here just to be nice to the people who might oppose and have opposed this idea heavily in the past and maybe here in the present as soon as I release this podcast episode. Some people say Brandon Nimmo is hands down the best hitter in this lineup, which I will never disagree with. Brandon Nimmo is, at this current juncture of the season, the New York Mets' best hitter, all in all, on this roster, in this organization. I will confidently say that. In any situation, whether you want someone on base or whether you want a production with runners in scoring position, you want Brandon Nimmo at the plate more oftentimes than not than anybody else. So a lot of people say Brandon Nimmo's our best hitter. Why would you want to not maximize the capability of Brandon Nimmo and get him the most at-bats possible? You see it with Aaron Judge on the Yankees. You see it with Kyle Schwarber on the Phillies. You see it with Ronald Acuna Jr. on the Braves, which is a very valid argument. I will say that. I will say that. And a lot of people will probably double up the fact that the Mets won last night because Brandon Nimmo hit the walk-off home run, which just coincidentally happened to happen because he was replacing DJ Stewart. He could have replaced somebody else and been at any other point in the lineup, but it did magically work out that way that DJ Stewart was starting in place of him. And talk about DJ Stewart, a unique leadoff hitter to begin with. That surprised me, but I liked a little bit of a shakeup from Carlos Mendoza. Listen, I simply just look at this lineup and the efficiency landscape isn't there. Now, I will say the bottom of the lineup has done a great job in terms of being table setters. We're talking about your Harrison Baders, your Tyrone Taylors, maybe even your Brett Beatties to some extent, getting on base and allowing Brandon Nimmo to have all these RBIs under his belt, allowing him to hit 375 with runners in scoring position from the leadoff spot. And Brandon Nimmo, to be fair to everybody who opposes this idea of moving Brandon Nimmo out of the leadoff spot, he's only had 4 less plate appearances than Francisco Lindor with runners in scoring position, and only 2 less plate appearances than Pete Alonso with runners in scoring position. But for me, it's just the feel of this lineup. It's the hopes and prayers that this lineup and the guys in the middle are going to start magically producing. And it might happen. It really might happen. But what like the production that I look at this lineup and what it's produced right now, coupled with the fact that Brandon Nimmo really isn't going to stay a leadoff hitter for the entirety of the rest of his Mets contract and maybe the rest of his Mets career and career in general if he retires a Met, I don't foresee that happening. I foresee in the future, whether it's next year or the year after, him moving down in the order to begin with. So why not try it out right now? Let me know in the comment section. I could be completely out of base, but the runners in scoring position, the lack of production, the lack of efficiency simply does not work for me anymore. It does not work for me, and you need change, and you need to see what change looks like in order to just come to conclusions and the necessary conclusions to fix things that are going to help you win ball games. That's my idea, and that's my philosophy. Why not? So you let me know in the comment section down below. Hit the comment section. Would you or would you not move Brandon Nimmo out of the leadoff spot? Now, I'm not naive. I know how this organization operates and how they've operated in the past. Obviously, new regime changes are going to implement new philosophies. I understand that. But I'm not going to be naive here and think that the Mets are going to make this move this season. Would I like it to be this season? Yes. But I'm not expecting Brandon Nimmo to hit third or fourth this season. I'll be pleasantly surprised if and when it happens, but I'm not expecting it. This is a next season type of change that I really want people to just sort of get acclimated to or just maybe a little bit exposed to here in the event that it does happen next year, because I can already foresee lineup changes and personnel changes in this lineup from year to year. And I'm getting too ahead of myself. But with the way that Brandon Nimmo has re-energized himself in the top of this lineup, why not take that resurgence and that energy and move it down to the lethargic part of the lineup that should be the best part of your lineup? That's my philosophy. But we do have a game coming up today. Sadly, no pregame stream. I apologize. We will try to get back to the Amazing Mets pregame shows here this week, schedule permitting. Mets kick off a brand new series versus the Phillies. Sean Manaea is on the mound. The Phillies are a great team. They're better than a lot of people and a lot of Mets fans give them credit for. They have overtaken the Braves as leaders of the NL East. The lineup is stacked. The pitching is coming around. And you see the pitching probables here. Sean Manaea versus Christopher Sanchez. Hopefully, the New York Mets are able to get a series win. It's always a great game against the Phillies. When it's a Phillies and Mets game, it's always great. It's always exciting. And the Mets really do play the Phillies close, I feel like, year in and year out, regardless of the personnel and regardless of the standings and the way things are going. This is always, always a great matchup. So I'm looking forward to that kicking off tonight. And here are your updated NL East standings. The Mets are now 8 games out of first place behind the Phillies. Like I said, the Phillies are the leaders at a 28-13 record. The Mets are 19-20, looking to go to an even 500 with a win over the Phillies today at 20-20. Like I said, the Mets are only one game out of the wild card. The division really wasn't in the cards and in the question for me even to begin this season. It was always about that back end of the wild card spot. Can the Mets maintain the competitiveness to make a playoff push for a wild card spot? The jury's still out on that. But let me know in the comment section. I appreciate you all coming to this podcast episode. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff, and tap that notifications button for future episodes right here on the True Mets Talk podcast. Peace, and let's go Mets.
Thank you for watching the True Mets Talk podcast. Make sure you're tapping on that notifications button and checking out all the latest content on the channel. Thank you.